Rated and Overlooked podcast. Hope everybody's having a great start to the week. A lot to get into today. We'll be talking about some XFL. We'll also get into NFL schedule that's supposed to come out. Also, major news in the basketball segment as well. And then also we'll be getting into major news recruiting wise. And we'll be getting into some SEC baseball. So, Craig, how you feeling today?
Doing good. I like these topics.
Yeah.
Just looking at the SEC baseball, I mean, it's been an incredibly successful season. Not one team has a losing record right now.
Yeah, I mean, incredible form of baseball. I got to show you as well. I think you'll actually enjoy, and you'll be kind of surprised as well. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get into the recruiting news, right? So we got Antoine Hill. He is now officially a 4-star on ESPN. He just released the news, so I think that's big for him. He's one of the top players, I believe, in the 2025 class. I expect for him to have some great playmakers and Ricky as well, who's starting to blow up in the recruiting world as well. But just what do you think of him being official 4-star now on ESPN?
I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the state. And we're seeing a lot of action right now during spring. It's no secret these college coaches are all over the state right now. There's also a lot of media going around, but even talking to Coach Reeves last week at Milton, I think he said something like in the last couple of days they had 20-something coaches stopping by. So, I mean, right now during spring, this is the time. And I think Antoine Hill, what Houston County did last year in that Region 1 with all those teams, they have a real shot this year to contend for a state title, and that'd be huge for them. They've obviously had great quarterbacks before, Jake Fromm, but Antoine Hill's, I mean, he's different. He's mature. He's ready to go.
For sure. And then other news, Cameron Perry, defensive end and linebacker for um,
Holy Innocents.
Holy Innocents, yeah, slipped my mind. He received a Tennessee Tech offer, so major news for him as well. Had a pretty good junior season. He'd probably be taking a more of a mantle on the role going forward. And then you had Cedar Grove cornerback Lakai Rowland, who's very highly recruited, 3-star. He just received an offer from Syracuse University. So expect for him to, again, step into that role. Last year they had some really good cornerbacks for Cedar Grove. Expect for him to step into that role, continue to be good, and have another great season.
Yep, Tennessee Tech. They also just offered Art Zion Williams, the Westlake receiver. They've been really active this week. I think Holy Innocents and Cameron Perry, they're going to be a top 10 team in 4A this year. Holy Innocents runs the triple option under Coach Todd Winter. Their defense last year was one of the best in the state in terms of producing the turnovers. So you had a big playmaker like that on the line to get those turnovers, get those sacks, and then offensively just control the ball. They're going to be a really tough team to match up with if you aren't prepared for that scheme. And I think Holy Innocents next year in 4A, Pace Academy next year, I think they're both going to be much improved. And so you got some interesting regions, especially with Stevenson as well. They had a good year, Miller Grove. So I like Holy Innocents next year and just their overall competition in the region, what I saw from them last year.
Okay, sorry guys. But yes, totally agree with you. Great points by you. Also, I think this is a big one. Breakout playmaker Jamari Bryce for Cartersville. He receives a Wisconsin offer. Last year, as a sophomore, 850 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns as a sophomore as well. So expect for him in that Cartersville lineup to even take an even bigger role. Had a great season last year, 12-2, 4-1 in the region. His coach talked about how good he was, the steps he's been taking last season when I was able to talk to him. So I expect kind of the same thing.
Yeah, Cartersville had a great year last year as well. I like what they're doing, but yeah, I've just been impressed with what we've seen. And I also noticed Woodward Academy. That's a team that you highlighted. We talked about those top 5 rankings, and they weren't on there. They weren't on the surprise, but
Right.
I think this last week, who is it? Ben Grice, offensive lineman. He gets wide receiver, Wake Forest offer. His teammate looks like Aiden Hughes. So these are players where you're going through 10 guys that you think are D1 guys. I mean, there's even more of them that are getting these Reinhardt offers starting to get on the radar. So I think Woodward Academy is a team everyone needs to put on the radar.
No, I totally agree. I mean, great point. I mean, Miles Graham, he's going to Florida. I've seen some pictures. I believe Luke and Jeremy are going on kind of a recruiting tour. Guys look huge. Andrew Hines going to Wake Forest, and actually Ben Grice actually committed to Wake Forest recently. So
Yep.
shout out to him. He blew up in the recruiting world as well. I mean, they got CJ Hurd, who was going to Florida State. They got Lucas Farrington, who's a really good player for them. They got Jerome Bettis Jr. They got studs all over the field. I think, like I said, the biggest question mark for them would be quarterback. But again, as you mentioned, Craig, a team that should be on everybody's radar going into next season. They have a whole plethora of talent offensively and defensively.
Yep. Josiah Abdullah.
Yeah, that's another one I
That
forgot.
guy scores touchdowns every single game. So,
Yep.
yeah, they're going to be absolutely stacked next year. And then I was noticing this week also, there's been a lot of big time offers going out to the offensive linemen.
Yep.
Who is it from Fellowship Christian? Josh Petty. He picked up an FSU offer. You got the big Raven Gap, I think interior lineman Justin Hazenhoodle. He picked up, who was that? Yeah, University of Florida. So SEC's been active. We're starting to see these offensive linemen, and yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of size in the state right now.
No, for sure. And I know you actually follow Cass a lot, and you have Steve Gates as a pretty regular on your show. What did you think about the offer from Barry McWhorter from Alabama?
Oh, that's huge. And this cast team, I first kind of started seeing people talking about them probably 2 years ago. Rusty really wanted them to get into the Corky Kell. And then, I mean, you were talking about Cartersville. They're in that region with Calhoun and even Hiram, who beat Calhoun last year. I mean, that's one of the best regions in the state. When you look at how much talent's on that cast team, they are no joke. And all of their games were close last year. They really could have finished with a truly historic season. I think they had that big first round win over Jefferson. So they're going to come back well prepared. That was their breakout year last year. They pretty much returned everyone. And I'm excited to see them play out the gates, and they're going to be matched up with Rome. So
You're right.
it's one of the best games in the state by far. And I think it's going to be really competitive. They have something to prove, and they definitely have the talent to do it.
For sure. And actually keeping it going, I didn't put this on our topics, but it's going to kind of give you a couple of games, and as you give me a reaction of what you think. But I think we should talk about the spring games. Obviously, some are going to be coming on this week. Three that really stood out to me: Norcross Buford, I think Milton versus Cass, and then Alpharetta versus Gainesville. So just those are three are obviously on my radar. I think must watch if you're able to go see them. Definitely go do that this weekend. But just what do you think of those games? What stands out to you?
I think with the Milton and Cass, that one might be more controlled. I think both teams are just so confident and well established off what they accomplished last season. They're going to have a controlled scrimmage. I think it will still be interesting just to see how they match up overall, how well they execute. In terms of Florida and Gainesville, that's outstanding. Talk about two aggressive offenses and high-powered attacks, and then two former Hoover coaches. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's exciting. And then Norcross and Buford. I think with Norcross last year, that was the highest point scored in school history with their offense. They do lose Lawson Lucky, some other pieces, but I think they really opened the playbook last year. And so I think it will be a test for them to come out and try to be balanced against a Buford defense that is trying to be the best in the state this year.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm excited about Milton Cass. As we mentioned, Cass is going to play Roman starting Corky Kell. A lot of talented roster players, continue to blow up. Devin Henderson, receiving a lot of hours. We know Kobe White's going to Georgia. The quarterback, Brody McWhorter, has been picking up some pretty good offers as well. So them against Milton, I think it'll be a good test for them. And obviously, I want to find out more about Milton. I've been discovering some stuff over the last couple of days. So I'm definitely going to bring the coach on and kind of figure out how to. Obviously, they're going to have summer practice and things like that. But I do want to figure out what they're going to do with a lot of these pieces that they have now and a lot of this talent they have, which is extraordinary. And then same thing that you said, Norcross versus Buford. Buford going to have kind of that chip on their shoulder, I think, this season, especially after getting upset in the second round for the first time, I think, in at least a decade plus. So I expect for them to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. They're playing a national schedule, two or three teams out of state that are going to be playing in that big Broward County showcase in Florida. So they're going to be playing the creme de la creme. So I think that's going to be a good test for Norcross to see where they're at. Losing a few pieces, what step forward does A.J. Watkins take in his second year at the helm as a starting quarterback? And then, as you mentioned, Alpharetta, right? How are they going to look offensively? Got a really good tight end prospect in Ethan Barber. Gainesville, how do they follow up that 14-1 season last year, making the state championship game? So I think those are marquee matchups.
For sure. I mean, Gainesville, I was just so impressed with how they ran just their day-to-day last year. feeding the guys 3 meals a day. I mean, they really have them kind of on the clock at all times. With Buford, though, they do have a lot of new pieces, exciting pieces on the offensive line. That will be interesting. The quarterback position, maximizing all that talent will be key. And then what'd you think of Milton? Because we had Coach Reeves on last week talking about Ryan G., their big tight end, how much size he's put on this year and just last year. And then kind of in the offseason, Georgia Elite, he began to blow up, but he admitted they're going to use him a lot more this year because he is that weapon, that mismatch, and I think he's going to have a big season.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You got Luke Nickel, who's heavily tied to QB as well, starting to blow up in recruiting. He's going to have another year at the helm, right? They had a great run last year, made the semifinals. Then you think about now he's going to have more of a go-to receiver. Not saying I'm not sure how much playing time he had last year for Ryan Gia, but imagine putting him into kind of that lineup. I think that's going to be great. Putting him there. Then you got CJ Wiley, who's an athlete. You got DeBron Gatlin, who's an athlete. They have another player I might even that I want to ask Coach about. I can't think of the top of my head, but he's another weapon for them next season. They're replacing their two corners, right? Or their two defensive backs. They're not going to have Robert Billings anymore. They're not going to have what's the other guy that's going to Clemson? I can't think of the top of my head, but they're bringing in two more guys that are young, two cornerbacks that are really good. Shamar Arnaud, I think, who's committed to Tennessee. How is that going to look secondary wise? How do they fit in with that defense? I think that's going to be really, really intriguing. But yeah, just back to your point, having that go-to weapon, I think, is going to be crucial for Luke. And then it's kind of almost having a guy, almost like a cheat code, right? You compare Hunter Till to Travis Kelce. I could see him having that same kind of a role in their offense, right? When it's not going deep with DeBron or CJ Wiley, right? He got somebody over the middle, can, put pressure on defense in the short and intermediate routes. Somebody that can just always open all the time, can block, create time for him. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, they really didn't have to use him that much last year. I think he only had 2 touchdowns. So that's why I asked the question, just based off what we've seen from him blowing up, and said, yeah, it's no secret they're going to try to use him a lot more this year. We've seen him in person. He's got outstanding hands. He's huge. And yeah, I think he was listed at 215 last year and he's at 244 right now. A completely different player. He's got the experience, and then that Milton off season and weight training and just him getting on the same page as Luke, I think he's going to have definitely a breakout season.
For sure. And then before we transition to our college segment, is there any teams that you think that we're not highlighting that you've watched over the years? You think they have a guy? I know you always highlight North Coney and their program, but any schools, 3A, 2A, Class A Division 1, Class A Division 2, 4A, 5A, just schools that we may be overlooking a little bit that has a potential chance to be dangerous. I mean, you mentioned Woodward Academy. That's a team that's not mentioned. I mean, I mentioned them a lot, but any teams you think just you're excited to watch next year that could have a good season?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of classifications that are going to be a lot more wide open. I think in 4A in particular, last year it was kind of a two-man show with North Coney and Cedartown. They were in a league of their own, but there's a lot of teams that are going to be able to catch up with them. I think Bainbridge is going to be outstanding this year. Perry just got a big transfer. Whitewater, the speed they've shown just in the track and field season, their wishbone offense, their second year in 4A, I think they're going to be dangerous. Stars Mill. And then in 3A, I mean, last year is okay, Cedar Grove, Sandy Creek, but I just have a feeling that there's going to be more of these teams popping up this year. It's going to be deeper overall, and I don't think we're going to have just that one favorite that's running the table, honestly, in any of these classifications. Maybe Hughes, they did it last year, but other than that, I mean, it was pretty deep.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And I mean, that's what I liked about 7A last year. It just was like, you knew you had the teams that would be there potentially, but you didn't know, like you had upsets. And that's what makes high school football so great, the parity. And I agree with you. I think it's going to be the same thing. And I think don't be surprised if you see some teams in 6A like the Woodward Academies contending with the Hughes, and we'll see how Gainesville looks. It's just going to be a great year, and we're definitely excited for it. But
yeah, and then I think one last thing, we're talking about recruiting. I mean, this week is the state championships for track and field. I think that's going to be massive for some of these guys. You go out there and you set a state record or post one of these national times, the college football coaches are going to see that. And so I was looking at it. I've got the state championship records right here. The 400-meter relay, the state record, Southwest DeKalb, 40.66. It's the fastest time I ever ran at the state meet. Hughes clocked a 40.63. So they beat that. If they repeat that this weekend, that's a new school record. So you got CJ Lockhart on there. You got some underclassmen. I just think there's a lot of records that are going to be broken. A lot of football guys, a lot of dual sport athletes have been balling out in track this season. So I think that's going to play a significant factor in kind of raising some of these guys' profiles. Got Bryce Dobson. He's obviously senior, but Sammy Brown, how's he do at state this week?
No, that's a great point. I mean, and I totally agree with you. Setting those personal records, setting those state records, it just shows you like, hey, coach. I mean, obviously you got your film on football, but then you can't coach speed.
Exactly.
You either have it or you don't. Like you can't coach it. So I think it just adds more to their repertoire and what they can bring to the table. When you have speed, I mean, you can always do something with that. Whether that's in football, the return game, just getting the ball out to them and letting them go to work. I mean, there's so many things you can do with speed. But we're gonna leave it there. That's our recruiting segment and latest on high school football. Stay tapped for that. Starting to heat up. We're gonna have summer practices here soon. We're gonna be breaking down 707s. Our media day is on the rise pretty soon here. We'll be in May. Our media day is
I think July 19th or
26th.
26th.
Yeah. So that's a Wednesday. So don't expect Craig to have a show that day.
Nope.
He'll be busy. But yeah, we'll be downtown. So stay tuned for that. A lot coming up as far as football as it starts to heat up and spring sports are starting to come to a close. But let's talk some SEC college baseball, right? So a conference is having a really great run. The Demon Deacons are playing really great for the ACC right now. They get their first number one spot in the rankings since 2015. They won all 12 of the games this past weekend. They're keeping the streak alive. They're 18-5 in the ACC. And they lead their conference by 4 games, and they recently just beat Boston College, who is the number 19th ranked team. LSU, who's been the number one since preseason top 25, they relinquished a spot. They lost their road series to Auburn. They slipped 1 spot to number 2. Arkansas moves up 3 spots to number 3. They swept their road series against Mississippi State. They improved to 17-7 in the SEC. They're a half game ahead of LSU in the Western Division, so look out for that. SEC East leader Vanderbilt, they hold steady at 5. Even though they dropped the series at Alabama, and then the Commodores, they lead their conference out there in the East currently right now. 2.5 games over Florida and over South Carolina. Both dropped their road series this past weekend. So Gamecocks, they fell down from number 3 to number 6, and then the Gators fell from number 4 to number 7. All right, and then other news, Stanford, they jumped up 3 spots to number 4. They swept their road series against Arizona State. Improved to 18-6 in the Pac-12, 3.5 games ahead of second place Sun Devils. And then 8 through 15, they all hold their current rankings the same. Clemson leaps into the top 25 for the first time this year at number 16. So shout out to them. And then Kentucky vaulted back in at number 17 after sweeping South Carolina, which is why they dropped down. And then also who returned, Southern Miss returned to the rankings at number 25 after running his winning streak to 10 games. So shout out to them. And I got a tweet I'm going to show you guys. Pull this up really quick so you guys can see it. Give me just 1 second. What happened? I think this stat is pretty insane. Let's see. All right, so now let's share the screen. I have found it, guys. Let's see, share screen. Okay, so this is the SEC versus the rest of college baseball. It's kind of funny here.
Got it right here.
Yeah, you got it too,
Yeah.
huh? All right, so American East, they're 5-1. Atlantic close 12-8. 7-0 versus Atlantic 10. Atlantic Sun, they're 27-5. 6-2 versus American. Big East, they're 3-0. Big South, 18-1. Big 10, 14-5. Big 12, 11-5. Big West, 1-0. Colonial, 6-1. Conference USA, 20-6. Ivy League, they're 7-3. Horizon League, they are 8-1. Metro Atlantic Athletic, they're 3-0. Mid American, they're 4-0. Missouri Valley, 17-2. Mountain West, 2-0. Northeast, 2-0. Ohio Valley, 15-3. Pac-12, 7-3-1. Patriot, 1-0. Southern, 14-1. Southland, 10-4. Southwestern Atlantic, 19-0. Summit League, 2-0. Sunbelt, 15-5. West Coast, 6-3. And Western Atlantic, 5-2. So, Craig, what stood out to you when you see that? and how dominant the SEC as a conference has been against the competition.
Yeah, it's incredible. Not one team in the SEC right now has an overall losing record. You just pointed out they have a winning record against every single other conference, and then they're probably beating them in attendance too. So
Yeah.
I mean, they're just dominating. It's pretty insane. And I mean, the national rankings, you have Wake Forest at the top right now, but I think the top. Yeah, you got LSU at number 2, Vandy number 3, Arkansas number 4, South Carolina 6, 4-7, Kentucky 19, Auburn 25. And then you also had, I mean, this last week, Alabama beat Vanderbilt for the first time since 2015. So that just shows the overall depth. I mean, it's just insane.
No, it is. I mean, it's phenomenal. You love to see it. I think they're going to have their conference tournament here pretty soon, and I think it'll be pretty intriguing. And this is high school related, but here's not. Who do you have going to these final winning? Hey, I got you, Dave. We're gonna do your questions at the end. I'm gonna answer that because I actually just did a video on who I think is gonna win today, between Real Madrid and Man City. So I got you. I'm gonna answer that and who I think is gonna win. Whoever wins that matchup is gonna win it all. No disrespect to Inter and Milan, but whoever wins the matchup today, I mean, obviously they're gonna have a second leg next week, but whoever wins that matchup, they're gonna win it all. But I got a prediction for you going forward. I'm pretty good with predictions too. But Craig, back to what we were talking about. Any other things stood out to you? I know it's kind of a, I guess, sour period, slow period right now. There's not a lot of things going on. I mean, most sports are wrapping pretty much. All we got really now is just baseball, as far as the major sports. But anything else, just recruiting landscape, transfer portal, NIL deals, just anything else stood out to you?
Well, no, I'm glad we brought this up because it was really interesting. Right here, 78 games in the SEC this year have been decided by the 10-run rule. So that's how dominant some of these wins have been. And then, I mean, this stat right here has what's the average time of each game. It was 3 hours, 15 minutes last year. It's 2 hours and 50 minutes this year because of all those games where they're ending in 10 runs. So they've just been dominant.
And then explain that rule to the audience. Some people, watch baseball, they don't. But what is that 10-run rule?
Yeah, once you get that 10-run lead, the other team will have 1 inning to chip it away. And if it doesn't happen, still 10 runs. They just end the game right there. So you can win 13-3 in the 6th inning. You don't even play the final inning. So they've had 78 of those this year across the conference.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, SEC is just another level, man. It's just another level.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think when does that tournament start? That will be, I think, later on in May. They'll be in, I think, Hoover Stadium in Alabama. So that'll be exciting. I mean, who's going to win it? Who's going to come out of the SEC? And then, obviously, they're going to pack that College World Series.
Oh, for sure. I'm definitely going to try to tune in and watch it. First round single elimination is 10:30 Tuesday, May 23rd. So still got about 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks away. And championship will be Sunday, May 28th. So towards the end of May.
Yep, big opportunity for sure.
Definitely.
Then I think I had another stat with kind of the batting averages for each of these teams.
But yes, 78, yes. I mean, that's how great it's been in the SEC. I mean, it's just next level. I try to watch them when I can. Obviously, I'll be busy, but I'll be watching the replays on SEC Network, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, so you got LSU, Florida, and Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, pretty much all batting 300 as a team this year. I mean, that's exciting to watch. Like, it's not, that's top to bottom. Everyone
for sure.
Getting it done. So it's been a big year for SEC baseball. It's exciting. It's obviously significantly better than last year. And even teams like Alabama getting a win over Vandy for the first time since 2015. It's a great stat.
I agree.
I don't know what Bama has going on, but the basketball team last year getting that number 1 ranking, baseball's on the rise. I mean, they're doing a lot. Georgia baseball is having a rough year. Georgia basketball had a rough year. So what's going on there?
It's a good question. I mean, yeah, it's hard to win in multiple sports, but they're doing the thing. Alabama is, and they were competitive this year in football. They just had a couple games he lost, losing to LSU, losing to Tennessee, nearly losing to Texas. So
Well, shout out to LSU too, because I'm noticing they seem to be on the rise as well.
yeah,
I mean, they are making major moves in recruiting on the girls' side, especially. But I mean, I'm seeing just overall athletically, they really have a good operation going there, and they're trying to win championships for sure.
Yeah.
They are heavily invested.
for sure. But all right, we're gonna leave the college segment there, getting a little dry. But I think obviously I'll discuss it with Craig and we'll let you guys know on our next show. But I think we may try to do some more centered around kind of conferences going forward for college. Thinking about like kind of focusing on a couple of teams when football season comes. I'm thinking about Tech, maybe Craig with UGA, just news and coverage, latest going on with them in our segments. We'll see though, but we're still discussing that. And maybe even cover some of the conferences, SEC, ACC, things like that. But we'll let you guys know as the show continues.
We'll
but
throw some Colorado in there too.
Yeah, some Colorado too. So
I'm interested in seeing what happens this season with them.
I agree. So stay tuned for that. We got some major news though. NFL schedule is going to be released on May 8th. That's in a couple of days. Well, actually, I said May 8th. I'm sorry. It's Thursday, May 11th. Forgive me, guys. I'm a day behind. I have it wrong in my notes here. But May 11th, 8 p.m., schedule release for NFL. They're going to be announcing major games. I think it's interesting, the rule this year, right? They're not going to have Thursday night team or team can play Thursday night football twice. And basically Thursday night football is up in the air. That's kind of nobody really has it. It's not according to Amazon or NFL Network or ESPN. Like whoever wants it can get it. And it's kind of interesting, I think. Like, imagine having to play back to back. Well, not though they wouldn't do it back to back, but imagine having to play 2 Thursday night games in 4 weeks. Like, that's a lot on your body, especially for a player. So, what do you think about that rule? And then, what do you think about just the scheduling in general? Any matchups you're kind of excited for?
That's interesting. We saw some teams when you get impacted by that at like the wrong point of the season, it can hurt you.
Yeah.
And the NFL season, it's a grind for sure. I think ideally fans to see the ability for them to be flexible with these Thursday night matchups or maybe pick them, but they're probably unfeasible to move games to a completely different day, just with everything that goes on and everything involved. But I don't know if the Thursday night not too good last season.
They weren't. There's something they got to do with that. I totally agree with you. And actually, I meant to say this. First Black Friday game is actually going to be this year as well on a Friday after Thanksgiving. So stay tuned for that as well. That's the first. That was just announced by Adam Schefter too, I think, the other day. But yeah, no, I agree. They got to do something better for the product of, having those. Like I said, it's hard too, Craig, because at the same time, you got teams that just play Sunday. I think it almost diminishes the product to a degree. Like, you're not going to have the best football. I know, obviously, NFL is, trying to get the revenue and continue with all these major deals they have, but that's something they should consider too. It's all about the product you put on the field. People love football. It's obviously the number one sport that's watched. But I think they got to be cognizant of that too. Just like Thursday night games, you could even do better. Maybe, obviously don't want to compete with NCAA, but maybe even some Saturday games they do towards the end of the season. I think that's all interesting. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'd prefer. If I was a team, I'd prefer to get my Thursday game in early.
Yeah, and be done.
Exactly. So, would it be fair if you? There's 17 weeks. You could theoretically give every team one Thursday game, but then having that late down the stretch, opposed to early on, and perhaps like a cross conference. It makes a huge difference. So, we'll see. It will be exciting to look at the schedule release, though, see kind of what those televised matchups are going to be, who's playing on Thanksgiving, who's got that tough stretch in December or
starting out.
Exactly.
No, I agree. I'm excited. And another rule they had, too, is that not every team is guaranteed a primetime game. So I think NFL is being very intentional with that one as well, kind of putting the best teams on TV. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the Chiefs. You guys won it all last year. Who's going to be your first opponent? Because you guys are going to play a tough schedule. But I'm curious about
who does the AFC North play against the NFC this year?
I think it's NFC West. I think this year. Yeah. So San Fran's in there. Let me say
Yeah,
for certain.
'cause
Hold on.
Who did the?
Let me say for certain.
Well, who's got to play the Eagles? Which one of us?
Not this year. We played them. We got one more year, I believe. All right, so we're gonna pull this up for y'all real quick. Y'all can see this too along with us. Hold on, let's share this screen as we discuss this. All right, so there you guys go. Guys can look along with this. That's 2024.
Because don't the Chiefs have just a ridiculous record against the NFC?
Yeah, it is ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so we're playing. Looks like the AFC South. Got Vikings in there. We don't play the NFC North this year though. 49ers is there. Yeah, NFC West. Cardinals,
Okay.
49ers, Seahawks, and then there's another team too.
That's right. And so the AFC West played the NFC West last year. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's look at Chiefs opponents as well. See what game they're gonna do, because I know you guys are gonna open it. I'm not gonna lie. Chiefs Eagles start to the regular season would be pretty good too.
We might see it.
Yeah, so I think that would be very, very intriguing. Okay, let's see. Okay,
the North.
So home looks like
you got the North with the Bears, Lions, Eagles.
Yeah, and I feel like they just put that game on there because y'all playing in the Super Bowl. And then in the AFC, looks like you're gonna play Jaguars, Patriots. Oh, you're gonna play the AFC East. Yeah, because see, you got Jets, you got Patriots, you got Bills. Yeah. So I mean, a very interesting schedule to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like the Philly game would be good. I feel like if you guys play at Buffalo, if you guys played us, I mean, they're probably going to put that away. But I mean, you guys can play us on Monday night. That'd be a great game, I think. Buffalo to start the season. All those would be intriguing matchups. I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes. Now that he's in the AFC now, that's another good game. I think would be pretty marquee. It's interesting. Excuse me, it's interesting.
Yeah, what do you think the big trend? Last year it was obvious. You had just like Brady retiring. You had all these older quarterbacks. Everything was focused on Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes,
right.
Joe Burrow.
Right.
I mean, what do you think this year? Is it going to be like a race? Who's going to be able to compete with the Eagles in the NFC? You think that's going to be the big storyline?
I got a hot take for you. This is no disrespect to your guy either. He's phenomenal. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day, Patrick Mahomes. But no, real quick before my hot take, I'm curious to see who's going to come out of the NFC and give the Eagles some competition, right? Some people are like, oh, well, they got all that roster. They're not going to be any good. I feel like the Philly's going to be good. I got to throw Dallas in there, despite me not liking Dallas. I think they'll be competitive this year still. I'm curious to see what steps Dak Prescott takes forward, but I think that's going to be a major storyline. San Fran, how they're going to look at the QB position. The only really contenders I see with them is either going to be San Fran or Dallas. Everybody else have to see Minnesota. I mean, had a good season last year, but they kind of, they didn't play well down the stretch. And, they got Jordan Addison go along with Justin Jefferson. But that's really their division to lose, right? No disrespect to the Lions. Lions took some steps forward, but can they replicate what they did last year, right? Can Jared Goff have another good year, right? They got a lot of good pieces that they bring in there. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, drafting Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. What steps he's going to take forward? Getting some receivers. So, I mean, the Lions are going to be interesting, but I have to see them do it again. I don't think the Packers are going to be very good. Bears, throw them in there too.
Vikings.
I mean, Bears, I think I want to see what Justin Fields does in his second year. How good is he going to look? That's another interesting question. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a strong line. This one is going to be major key, though, too, because I think he's going to take another major step forward. And I know everybody crowns Patrick Mahomes the best quarterback in the NFL. No disrespect there, but don't disagree. But I think this is going to be an MVP-type season from Joe Burrow. Calling it right now. I just had the confidence. I think he's going to take another step forward. I'm hoping he lands his deal before the season is over, or before the season starts, excuse me. But I think year 3, it's year 4 for him, but year 3 with Jamar Chase, and then year 4 with T. Higgins and all that roster, and what they got, and drafting Charlie Jones from Purdue, and what he's going to mean for the offense, kind of that Cooper Kupp-ish type of player, getting in and out of cuts, being a dynamic on the offensive end. I think he's going to have an MVP-type season. He was in the MVP conversation last year, but I think it's going to be clear-cut, head and shoulders above. Joe Burrow has that kind of MVP-type season.
That'd be exciting for
Yeah.
sure. Big question with the Bengals: can that defense just have another big season? I do think their offensive line will be improved, and then yeah, Joe Burrow's the man.
Yeah, so we'll see. That's one of my storylines. Obviously, there'll be more down the line, but I think that'll be one of the major ones. We'll see what happens with everything and how it manifests and works out, but I think that'll be a major one. But Chiefs, I think they're going to be right there again. I'm curious to see who's going to actually give you guys some competition in the division.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, like literally, like I'm looking to see who's going to give the Chiefs some competition. I always say the Chargers because I like Justin Herbert. I like the roster they got around them. They just got Quentin Johnson in the draft. I know they have a lot of injury riddled receivers with Keenan Allen and obviously Mike Williams. But who's going to give the Chiefs a challenge? That's the biggest thing. Like Denver has a new coach, Sean Payton. How does that look year two with Russell Wilson? Raiders new quarterback with Jimmy Garoppolo. Devontae Adams is still there, but how are they going to look? Yeah, I mean it's time for the Chiefs to get a little bit of more competition in the division.
I don't see it happening this year. I don't.
I mean, I get it. I get it. Ours is going to be tough again. I mean, we always got the Ravens. We always got the Steelers. We'll see what the Browns look like. It's going to always be hard, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see.
The Raiders have had some good games. I mean, the Chiefs play in close games. They really do. They don't blow out too many teams. They just have that execution and X factor with Mahomes at the end, and they just get it done. So no one has been able to do it better, more consistently.
Don't disagree with you there, man. But any other major things you're looking forward to for the scheduling?
I just want to see who's playing week one. That would be big.
I agree. Well, we'll know. We'll react next week to the schedule. Biggest matchups we're looking forward to. We'll have all that for you guys next week. But let's keep going. Reacting to some NBA semifinal games, some major blows to some teams. 3-1 leads for the Heat and the Lakers. You seen the game last night. Just what do you think about the playoffs so far and the series? Some are not, some aren't.
I'm reading that comment. What is that? I don't see it.
I've never seen Pat Mahomes beat Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Well, Tom Brady's retired. yeah. Yeah. How the Bucks do in the playoffs last year? They got stomped.
That's pretty funny.
They got stomped, but no disrespect. Yeah, I mean, I thought the series had been outstanding. The Lakers getting the 3-1 series lead. I mean, that's just so huge.
Yeah.
It's massive for them. Another hard fought game. All the games have been incredibly tight. It's just been huge for them. But thought Philly was a big winner. They had that significant lead early on. Boston comes back, takes the lead. That was a devastating loss for the Celtics, and just a game where it's like Philly can take that sigh of relief because they haven't had that type of, I don't know, things going in their favor too much in the playoffs. I mean, that was a really big win.
No, I agree. I mean, Philly doing that and then him doing it for Josh Howell, the guy that was shot at the Michigan State University with that mass shooting. Harden balled out. I mean, Harden's kind of like reminds me of an AD. The only reason I say that is because they have like their highest peaks are so great, but then their lowest, floors are just so terrible, right? So, he struggled through game 2 and 3 after dropping that 45-point performance in game 1. So I don't know. Sometimes they're hard to gauge, right? They're on, they're off, they're Jekyll and Hyde. But nonetheless, he had a great game. Hit that big shot. Hit some floaters in there. Played good defense at the end. They could have lost. Marcus Smart hit that game winner technically, but didn't get it off in time. So that was a back and forth game. But Philly played how they needed to play. Got that major victory on the road, and then now they'll look to still try to game 5.
Yeah, and Jason Tatum got off to a slow start. I think he was 1 of 9. He came on early. So, I mean, they just lucked out that the Celtics got off to that really slow start, and they were able to pull it out. And I thought Harden made some big plays. He had that nice block on the baseline.
Yep.
He's been playing with a great effort, and that was a really big team win. I've also been impressed with Miami and some of the exciting plays they had in that last win. I mean, they really are playing with more energy than the Knicks. It's just apparent. Jimmy Butler's bringing it. You saw that vintage outlet pass from Kevin Love. It's like the Knicks get a nice basket. He just hurls it full court, easy basket. The huge dunk by Caleb Martin. They've had some exciting plays. So they're just bringing more energy than the Knicks at this point.
The fact that Miami's in this position after barely getting into the playoffs as the 8th seed, having to play the Bulls to get in and upsetting the Milwaukee Bucks, and then at this point 3-1 up against the Knicks. I mean, it's just incredible. And you could say they don't have the most talented roster, right? You got Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and they got a bunch of injuries, right? Tyler Hero's hurt. Kyle Lowry's, he's not the same player, but he's giving them good minutes. Kevin Love, backstretch of his career. I mean, it's just really, really impressive what they're doing, and you got to shout them out. Players, Gabe Vincent stepping up, Cody Martin, as you mentioned, stepping up. Players coming in, giving them good minutes. Max Strus is another one. They're playing really, really good right now. So shout out Miami. Knicks are in trouble as well. They got to go home. I'm sure that crowd would be raucous, and they're going to try their best not to let them lose. But they need more production from Julius Randle. He got to play better. RJ Barrett got to play better. It can't be just Jalen Brunson, who's been a great piece for them. But they just got to strongly consider next season if they want to go further than just the semifinals and beyond. They got to think about getting another piece in there to pair along with Jalen Brunson that can really, impact the game as how he's been doing for them. And then the other series, Lakers, I got to give them credit where credit is due. They're up 3-1. That's a game I think Golden State could have won, but they had no answers for Lonnie Walker in the fourth, who had 15 points off the bench. He was phenomenal. He was cooking Curry. And the key in that game was the adjustment by the Lakers, right? So basically they kept putting they went away from AD and they kept putting LeBron in a pick and roll with Steph Curry to defend with either drawing a foul or was getting the ball to open shooter or Lonnie Walker was able to cook, right? Steph Curry's not the best defender, but he tried his best. I think he's an average, close to above average defender. He tries as best he can. He's not a big guy, 6'3". But I think towards the end of the game, it just waned on him more, right? He got more tired. He was having to do a lot. He scored 31 points. He didn't shoot it efficiently, but he had 14 assists, 10 rebounds. He had a triple double, right? So he gave it all he could in the game. And I thought Steph was phenomenal for the most part, but he's been let down, Greg. They were killing AD in the pick and roll. They went away from that. They changed. They had AD on Wiggins. They should have set more screens with that, create him more in pick and rolls because their offense was flowing really good in the first half. But they're not getting enough production from Klay Thompson. Besides that 30-point game, Klay just did not look good the whole game. And then those two shots towards the end, I mean, I know he's a shooter, top 5 shooter all time, but you just cannot have that. Those 2 quick shots he shot early in the play clock. Can't have that. And then Jordan Poole has just got his money, $128+ million, 0 for 4, 0 points. And it's actually been reported there's been tension in the locker room, especially after the last game. And it's just like, everybody goes back to the Draymond situation and they say, oh, well, that's the reason why he's not playing well. That happened early in the season. Draymond has apologized for it. He's taken a back step to Jordan Poole, even in the King series, and says, hey, I'll come off the bench. I'll do what's best for the team. At some point, you have to have the mental makeup and the mental fortitude to overcome that. And I think he's at this point, he's unplayable. Like, he's not bringing nothing to the offense. He's a liability defensively. He's turning over the ball. He's bad energy. It's just, and he's supposed to be a part of the young core. So when Steph and Draymond and Klay eventually leave or retire, whatever, he's supposed to be a part of that. But I feel like they're letting the minutes get to him, and it's affecting the team.
Yeah, it's a good point. And then they brought up the shot selection at the end. You had the turnover by Draymond. I mean, the execution down the stretch wasn't good, but I think you said it right. Steph Curry was definitely exhausted. You could tell with some of those late shots, he's having to do too much.
He is.
They just aren't clicking at this point, but you got to give credit to the Lakers and what AD is doing and just overall as a team. And then, you talked about Walker showing up late and just knocking down some major shots.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what the narrative is going to be. Everybody says, oh, well, Curry's always had the better teams and LeBron hasn't, but if they win, is it going to be, oh, Curry had the better team? Because we can make the argument the last 2 seasons that Curry's has had to carry the Warriors to where they've been at. Winning a chip last year, I think that's cemented his legacy to me as a top 10 player. But everyone's like, oh, well, he lost the second round. He's 1-6 against. But Curry's having to carry, right? That game, go back and look at the game. Lonnie Walker had 15. Austin Reeves had 21 points. AD had, I think, 23, and LeBron had 27. You had 4 scores above double figures. What else did you have with the Warriors besides Gary Payton, who had, I think he had 15. He didn't play much in the second half, and then Wiggins had an inefficient 17 points. Where has Clay been? Where has Dre been? Where has Poole been? He has not been getting those productions from them. I mean, he's having to do too much. That 50-point game, he pretty much saved Golden State in that game 7. Curry needs help. So I'm curious to see what the narrative is going to be.
Yeah, I think they win the next game, but ultimately lose the series.
Yeah, totally agree. But last series, I mean, and we're going to bring up one of your questions before we talk about XFL. I thought Dave posted a really good question. He said, who do you think's had the better postseason? And this relates to the Suns and the Nuggets series. D-Book, Jokic, he called him Gokic, or Jimmy Butler.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's one of the questions.
I think I'm just going to go with Jimmy Butler.
Okay.
I think he's probably the MVP. I mean, he is heart and soul of that team right now.
Yep.
But can't count out Booker and just what him and KD have been doing. What they each dropped 36 points in the last win.
Yeah, he did.
So 2 players, 72 points. I mean, you're talking about all the guys that got involved in the Lakers. I don't know how you beat a team with 2 guys going off like that. 36 points each. They're just on fire. I think the Suns look really good right now. They're playing with a ton of energy, and I think the Nuggets look frustrated.
Yeah, they're calling him the light-skinned mama right now, Devin Booker. I'm going to go with D-Book. I think what he's doing right now is just absurd. Once I tell you these numbers, in the playoffs, guys, he's averaging 37 points per game, 7.4 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, a block, 62% field goal percentage, 51% from 3, and 87% from 12. His last 2 games, 47 points, 20 for 25 shooting, 9 assists, 6 boards. In the last game, as Craig mentioned and alluded to, 36 points, 14 for 18 shooting, 12 assists, and 6 rebounds. Now, y'all tell me, besides a video game, where have you seen that kind of efficiency offensively? I've yet to see it in the NBA. So, D-Book is on another level right now. Jimmy Butler's had a great postseason. He's right there. But if I had to say who's had the best, it definitely got to be D-Book. No offense to Jokic. Jokic had his 53 points. He balled out. He is the ball starts and stops with Jokic. But the fact they were down 2-0 and Devin Booker has taken upon himself, along with KD, to put his team in position to win. And he's not just doing it, taking all these bad shots, right? He's efficient, right? He's getting to his spots. He's taking mid-rangers, taking floaters. He's getting his teammates involved. He's not forcing it. He's letting the offense come to him, and he's doing it very, very efficiently. I have to say D-Book right now. It's because I think he's just at another level right now. And I think next year he could be in that conversation for MVP. And the crazy part is he's playing with an all-time great in KD, and he's the number 1 option right now. Think about that. KD was just in Brooklyn with Kyrie, and he was the number 1 option. You can make the argument or even say that D-Book is the number 1 option over KD. Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's making ridiculous plays. The shots are incredible. He's doing more than just scoring. He's pacing the entire team right now. They're playing with so much energy. The Nuggets can't keep up with that offense at this point. And then with him stepping up as this number 1 option, then you have Durant going off. And so they look really dangerous. They're extremely exciting to watch play. And I think they're going to be a problem moving forward if you keep shooting like that.
Yeah. So we'll see. Most pundits be like, oh, the series is over. They're down 2-0. But I think this series goes 7 games. Jokic, like as you said, best single game performance I've probably seen in a long time. He continues to be, great for the Nuggets. But we'll see what they can get from their bench and their depth going forward, and what kind of plan they're going to have for those two. Because without Chris Paul, that's been the majority of the Suns' offense. But Landry Shamet had a really good game 4, stepped up big, hitting those corner threes wide open. So if he continues to do that, Suns got to their chances going forward.
Yeah, these are going to be some great games. Yep. Tight finishes, but that's just a superstar going off right now.
Yeah, for sure. And then we had XFL before we get to your other question, Dave. Major news on that. We tried to get some people on. It didn't work out, but we got the XFL championship, some major players. Craig is going to announce them that played at Georgia or Georgia Tech. He's going to say those in just a second. But just a quick breakdown of the matchup. Renegades versus Defenders. Luis Perez had a great showing in that championship game before. He was 19 for 27 passing, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns. Javonte Payton, 5 catches, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. Davion Smith, 24 carries, 94 yards, and they slowed down a very high potent offense for Houston. Season low 11 points they held them to in that big playoff game. And then for the defenders, they have the XFL Offensive Player of the Year, Jordan Tamo. Struggled two first half interceptions, but he started to find his great receivers, Jackson, and Chris Blair. Abram Smith was held to just 48 yards rushing, yet they were able to still put up 37 points against a really good Seattle defense. Cameron Harris was a running back added to the roster 7 days prior. He also had a really good them. Also to look out for in this one, my money is on the defenders to win. I think offensively they've been having a great year. Jordan Tumu, as I alluded to earlier, he was third in passing this past season. Abram Smith, he's led the league in rushing with 791 yards and tied for the most rushing touchdowns with 7. Davion Smith, who plays for the Renegades, he's also had a great season. Former Michigan Wolverine, he's also tied for 7 rushing touchdowns, the lead along with Smith. Been having a great season. So,
yeah, I think it's going to be really. I mean, these guys. Yeah, it's not the NFL, but it's still exciting. And if you're in the XFL, this is literally what it's all about: winning that championship. What an opportunity! And just a lot of Georgia players are going to be appearing in it. Let's see, got from UGA, Davin Bellamy, DeMarcus Hayes, Brian Harrion, from Georgia Tech, TJ Barnes. And then this comes from Lainey Angel. She's currently the communications coordinator for the XFL. She reached out. Looks like there's going to be 10 players from the state of Georgia in this game also. So more excitement. But I think that's just the big storyline. It's like you're in the XFL. It's professional football. The league's been exciting. It has a history to go out there and win a championship in a competitive game. That's a memory that is going to be epic, honestly.
no, I totally agree. I mean, it's going to be epic for those players. Being able to compete and contend for a title. Great, I think season, opening season for XFL. Obviously continue to try to improve it and fine tune it, but I think a great season overall. And then Bob Stoops for the Renegades, he looks to become just the 4th coach ever to win a collegiate and a professional championship. So I think that would be very, very interesting.
I think we'll see aggressive play calling, some trick plays. I think will be an exciting product. So check it out this weekend.
For sure,
that'll football.
Yep, that'll be a lot of fun. But another question we had: thoughts on Bronny signing with USC? That team's going to look pretty deep. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, they got Isaiah Collier, who was number one player in the country. Bronny, who's also a point guard. We'll see how he plays, if he's able to start. You put that along with Ayrton Page, Boogie Ellis. They got a pretty deep roster. So I think last year they made the tournament, but they got a lot better, I think, because to see how quickly they're able to come up to the forefront, be able to play, get significant minutes. But I think they knocked it out the park this year. USC did as far as the recruiting with basketball, and I think that's a team that should be able to have a really good season in the Pac-12 and potentially even make a deep playoff run.
Yeah, it's a small world, isn't it? With USC just watching Isaiah Collier get it done this season, go undefeated in the state, by far the best player in the country. I think with Bronny, there was always that question: is he going to go to Ohio State? Because that was the school where people thought if LeBron would have ever gone to college, that would have been the spot. He's carving his own path, though, and I think getting a chance to play with Isaiah Collier, Ayrton Page, all those guys, USC is going to be an outstanding team for not only the near future but beyond. But I think Bronny, he's a good two-way player. He's well-rounded. I think he can fit in well there, especially with a player like Isaiah Collier.
Totally agree. So I'm curious to see what the coach is going to devise up for them, and how they're going to look offensively and defensively. See, Collier is a pretty good defender as well. So I think my thoughts on it: great move for them. Another good knockout of the park signing. Curious to see how Bronny's going to look. How quick they're going to transition to the NBA. Is it 1 year, 2 years? How long do they stay? And just how they're going to look overall. I think it'll be really, really intriguing.
Yeah, and just you have that much star power on the team, and it's like it's Bronny, but I do like the move though, because he is going to carve his own path. But just as a player, I don't think he tries to do too much. He plays tough defense, does pretty much everything well offensively. So it's just about fitting in. He's played a lot of basketball, but he's going to be on a team that's going to have a major spotlight on it.
For sure. And then we had another question from you, Dave. Anybody that's watching too, you want to ask a question, definitely ask it in the chat. But you asked us about the UCL final. I'm not sure how much Craig Oh, you can display comments. That's pretty cool. I'm not sure how much Craig actually watches it, but I know I did a prediction video, Real Madrid versus Man City. I think it's gonna be an incredible game. Okay, so in the past 4 matchups, actually, 17 goals have been conceded. So that's about 4.25 goals per game. Man City added Erling Haaland this year to go along with their roster. They are top tier in the Premier League this year. Haaland has 51 goals and 45 appearances. He leads UCL in scoring. He leads Premier League in scoring. He is the candidate for Ballon d'Or. If you guys don't know what Ballon d'Or is, that's basically you win an award for being the best soccer player just overall. It's handed out by, I think, the French magazine. It's a major award, major accomplishment. They have different awards like goalie of the year and best striker and things like that. But this is the best overall player. But I definitely think that he is going to be very instrumental in Man City winning. I got him having a brace in this game. I think they're going to go down early. I think Real Madrid is going to be on the attack with Vinicius Jr., who's been leading in chances for others this season, 101, 19 assists, leading La Liga. Him and Rodrigo have been really good in their last matchup. Not playing against Man City, but their last win, they had a brace from Rodrigo. So he's been playing really good for them. Again, I expect it to be a high-scoring game. I got a 3-2 victory for Man City. And also, Man City is looking to do something that's never been done in UCL against Real Madrid, European team that wins multiple times at their stadium. So this game is actually in Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. So look out for that. But I definitely think it's going to be great. And I think if Man City wins this game and they go to the final and they win, I think it's a foregone conclusion for Erling Haaland to win the Ballon d'Or unequivocally. He's been fantastic. But the key is going to be Courtois, right? Courtois has 33 saves, I think 5 clean sheets this season. I think he's only conceded 6 goals. His performance last year was so phenomenal, was the reason why they won the UCL last year, right? If he has that kind of performance again, it could be really tough for Man City. So definitely think that's going to be an interesting game. But yes, 3-2 victory for Man City on the road. There could be a lot of fun. And then quick prediction for that one. Inter AC, I'm going to go Inter. I think they're playing some really good football right now. I think it's going to be competitive between both teams. I got a 1-1 draw in the first leg. Second leg, I think Inter's going to take off. They're going to get a 3-1 victory and going to advance on. They've been having a really great season as well. I got them winning that. But we'll see.
Nice. So that's the Champions League you're talking about.
Yep. Which is today. They're going to play tonight.
Today. Right.
I think it's at 2 or 3 p.m. But, I mean, they just got great players. And then the players also to watch out for Man City, I didn't mention Julian Alvarez is going to be interesting. Phil Foden, how they're going to play. And then De Bruyne leads the Premier League in assists with 19. So he'd be shutting up chances as the midfielder for Erling Haaland a lot. So look for him to be also a key piece and key cog for them in this game as well.
I'll check it out. But, yeah, you're predicting a brace. So.
Yeah, brace for Haaland, 3-2 victory for them. And I think Vinicius Jr. is going to get a goal as well.
All right, well, that would be exciting.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the Champions League's big time. I remember, we thought we were excited when Atlanta United won the MLS Cup. Obviously, the Champions League, that's like
different level.
Yeah, no offense, but yeah, that's big time. So I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, for sure. And then before we wrap for today, any more questions and anything else you want to address before we close out the show?
Well, I thought yesterday Jason Longshore came on my show and
he gave great analysis.
Him talk for 45 minutes about soccer in the state. He just had all these prospects. He had notes on every single team, how they got to the state title, how they won, their style of play. I mean, it was just such a gem of an interview. He's such a knowledgeable guy. So you can check that out if you're a soccer fan, want to know kind of what's going on in Georgia, what areas are blowing up, the Athens area, Forsyth, the different classifications that have teams that, he says might be the best to ever come through Georgia. I just thought it was an unbelievable interview, and you should check it out.
Yeah, go to our YouTube page, check that out wherever you're watching. It was phenomenal. I mean, his analysis of how he broke down just the whole landscape of the soccer realm, how it looks for high school, how he believes that the women's side or the girls' side is going to maybe even outpace and even outgrow the boys' side in the state of Georgia. Just go check it out. I mean, it's phenomenal stuff. Great interview, very intuitive, very insightful. You'll learn a lot from it. And as he mentioned, want to get into soccer, don't just, get into it because of, for some reasons. You don't have to be very knowledgeable. Just try it out. It's very, very good. I think our audience will really, really enjoy it.
Yep. Soleil Washington from Chambly, a name to remember.
Yeah, because she could be possibly playing for her Jamaican national team, and she's committed to UCLA. So she had a phenomenal season this year. Led them in goals and I believe assists for Chambly. They kind of get vindicated because they got their title stripped away, but they just outclassed. I think they played Greenbrier, right? It was 9-0, the victory.
She scored 4 goals, 156 to 8 goals advantage this year for them.
Yeah.
And they tied Marist, who lost to Roswell. I mean, he just had a great analysis, but I'm just excited hearing from him and looking at who's going to be returning next year. I think it's going to be a big year for soccer for sure. So check that out. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow with my show, Thursday. I know Najeh will have some great stuff on his show. So check that out.
Yep. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in. As always, Dave, we appreciate the questions. The other 2 viewers besides Dave that are watching, please engage us on social media. Go follow Score ATL or Score Atlanta on Twitter. Go follow me at Najee Wook on Twitter. Go follow Craig Sager Jr. on Twitter. We love the questions. It really helps our show. So yeah, send us questions in the DM and follow us so we can get more questions we can answer on the show as well. But we appreciate you guys for the support. Always tuning in. Tune in to Craig Show tomorrow at noon. He'll have a bunch of good guests, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.